Final Fantasy is an RPG. It's the only one that I need. It's the RPG for me. But really, the game is actually just a minigame compilation disguised as an RPG, and I love it. FF7 Remake is a bit of a debated game, since most of the FF7 fans wanted an actual remake of the game, and instead they kind of got like a re-envisioning of it, featuring the Dementors, which I always find it funny that purists hate them, because canonically, they're just fanboys making sure the timeline doesn't change at all from the original. I was actually a huge fan of Remake outside of some shenanigans. The main one being that Sephiroth has no build-up, and instead it's, hey, it's Sephiroth! Remember Sephiroth? That's Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII! The original was my first Final Fantasy game that I ever completed. I definitely fell in love with Cloud and Sephiroth, even more so when they appeared in Kingdom Hearts. Even if that did kind of solidify Cloud as an edgy boy for future portrayals, when in reality, Cloud is a big dork. Remake took place in the Midgard chapter, and now that we've broken out of that, Rebirth allows you to explore more of the outside world, and it really lets the characters show off their silly sides. So anyway, with Rebirth, I actually avoided a lot of the trailers in the demo because I kind of wanted to just experience it myself. I remember a lot from the original, but it wasn't a perfect memory, and I thought it'd be nice to go in with a bit of a fresh mindset instead of this is different. But admittedly, that was kind of kicked in the gut when the game started you off as Zack. Without a big ol' spoil, you just need to know that old Zack Attack, he shouldn't be here right now. That shouldn't be happening. But instead of getting upset, I was actually pretty intrigued. Right off the bat, the game kind of tells you, this ain't the FF7 you know. Which a lot probably dislike, but I like that. I think the concept of doing a remake that knows it's a remake and is actively fighting against being a remake is interesting. Diving further, one could argue that the name Remake is a tongue-in-cheek reference to Sephiroth trying to remake this timeline. I think it's a good way to go about it, because when you try and make a one-to-one remake of older games, they can either highlight some of the outdated mechanics, kind of like Demon's Souls did, alongside crap on some of the aesthetics, or they can wind up like Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. So I like this concept of faithful remake, winky face. It keeps most of the main story beats so you can still experience your favorites in a new light while also adding more to it. My main gripe is, as mentioned, it does downplay a lot of the build-ups, and also it makes Yuffie a million times more annoying. Did you guys know that she likes materia? I never would have guessed. Other characters get more polish. I already loved Barrett, but he is just phenomenal in these games. His voice actor did a fantastic job, and the Dyne segment of the game really just hit a lot harder this time around. I'm a big fan of the main cast. All their voice work is pretty good, and the game gives them a lot of opportunities to express a variety of emotions in this title. I'm so happy that Cloud can actually express things in this one. I had such a huge smile on my face whenever the characters interacted, because there's just so many charming little lines, deliveries, and animations. The group does balance each other out very well, and it's not even limited to the Scooby Squad. The supporting characters all do a great job too. Roche is always a charm to see. Scarlet's a fantastic bitch who can totally step over other characters' lines, because that's what... And Hojo is fucking disgusting. Good job, you nailed it, James. In the beginning of the game, you get to listen to Cloud's fanfiction of him and his BFF Sephiroth. It's actually great to hear the two interacting in a way that isn't filled with contempt or malice or... The two pal around and flirt, and you even get some dialogue between Sephiroth and Tifa. Not only that, but playable Sephiroth, baby! Hell yeah! So, gameplay. The gameplay, for the most part, is very similar to Remake. It's a mix of timed and action combat. You'll move, guard, and dodge in real time, all of which build up a gauge that will allow you to slow time while you menu to select abilities, spells, items, and the like, to keep some of the original turn-based vibe. If you really want a turn-based mode, you can toggle it on for characters to fight automatically and leave the menuing to you, but I've never even bothered to try that out. I don't even really feel like researching it. This title also introduces precision defense, which I absolutely love. You can completely negate an attack if you guard at the right time. There's a materia to extend this window too, and it's very satisfying when you pull it off. I'm always a fan of the potential to do a damageless fight. Every character has this option too, but a few benefit more than others. The mains being Cloud and Scooby, because Cloud has a stance that counters melee attacks, so he can basically pull off a super guard a la Paper Mario, whereas Red's shtick is he gets stronger the more he guards attacks. Also, quick side note, but I was always really confused as to why everyone referred to Red as a dog. You always look like a lion to me. Is that not a lion? What part of that is a dog? New to this title's combat is the synergy system, where you can team up with your party to unleash a variety of attacks and counters depending on who you're controlling and who you're with. These are done with a shoulder button combo and do not require ATB to use, but they can have long windups or cooldowns depending on which one you're using. Generally though, you kinda wanna spam these. I frequently used Cloud's Counter-Strike with the gals, which can deflect even magic. Using these enough will allow even stronger synergy moves that will also give a buff, like infinite magic, higher limit breaks, staggered damage multipliers, or granting an extra ATB slot. You have an actual party in this game as opposed to remake railroading you into always having 3 or less with you at one time. You choose who you want as your actives, and everyone else mostly just sits back and shoots the shit, only firing off an attack when one of the actives gives them the stink eye. The characters all behave pretty differently. Cloud is probably my best because I love Punisher mode so much. Also, hanging out with Sora and Smash Bros did him wonders because the dude can just fly now. Tifa hits hard and has the ability to extend multipliers on staggered enemies. Aerith twirls her magic wand and buffs buddies. Barrett has a gun shoots. Red is a mix of a fighter and a healer, benefiting from a lifesteal ability which later on can actually heal teammates too. The combat to me feels a lot nicer in this one. I was already a big fan of remakes, but I just loved fighting everything in this game, especially a lot of the later fights too. Once you start to get a handle on timing and how to effectively pressure and stagger, it feels really satisfying. The sound design is phenomenal too, because like heavy hits and counters, they feel powerful. Like when that sound plays, it's just, oh, that right there, that's what activates the neurons. You have the option to swap control to any of your 3 actives whenever you want, and even if you don't want to full control them, you can command them with the ATB system. Remake had a bit of an issue where if you wanted a character's full potential, you had to swap back to them, but Rebirth introduces an auto materia allowing them to use specific skills, specials, or their abilities. The game gives you a lot more freedom to play the battles how you want compared to the previous title. There are still segments where it'll force you to play as other characters, meaning you still kind of need to keep everyone fit and fed. Non-actives still earn EXP, so you don't really have to worry about swapping back constantly, but you will need to run through their upgrade trees, which in this title suck. They had a really nice system in Remake, and then they transferred it to the most by-the-books method imaginable. I guess the idea was to make it a little bit more hands-off. Weapon leveling is still in, but it's mostly just pick a buff or two. And now there is party leveling, which is done by completing quests or research in the various regions. That's right, research, meaning not only is Chadley back, but he made a gender-bent version of himself that may or may not have a crush on Cloud. Instead of trying to unpack that, simply run out into the open world and activate the Ubisoft Breath of the Wild or whatever tower mechanic gameplay you want to reference. There are multiple regions in the game that all have their own research lines that you can follow. There's the tower climbs to find stuff around the location, the summon shrines, which is a little memorization minigame to weaken the summon fights, livestream pawns, which unlock stuff to dig up, and a region-exclusive fight, regional combat variants to bully that all have parameters you need to fulfill, Moogle hunts, oh god, no! And the proto-relic lines, which are the more varied and bigger quest lines for a region. Doing any of these nets you EXP and points that you can give to Chadley to make more powerful and unique materia. As with most open world games, these copy and paste objectives kinda get more repetitive as you progress. I full cleared the first region and did a good chunk of the second, but as I continued, I really only hit up these spots if they were like on the way, or if they were the combat ones, since those at least gave unique fights. Outside of these, there doesn't really seem to be too much of a reason to explore these regions. Maybe I just missed them all, but I never really ran into special drops or even scenery that weren't home to a marked research objective. And that's fine, the game isn't really open world, it's more like Sonic Frontiers where it's just open zones. Still, I'd take any of these over a yahaha. The game also introduces a crafting system, so when you are traveling, you can mash triangle to pick up various twigs and rocks to smash together and turn into potions and the like. Crafting something that you craft EXP, and the more you level, the more you unlock. You can wind up crafting some pretty good gear too. This isn't necessary by any means, but it can save you a pretty penny since you won't need to buy items as much. But some of the rarer materials you may wind up just buying from the vendor anyway, which kind of defeats the purpose. There are also side quests which generally wind up being a go-to target and kill or go-to target and minigame. These, however, serve multiple purposes. Obviously, they net you EXP and sometimes items, but they also net you love. in the original FF7, there was a romance system, but it was hidden away, and you didn't really learn about it outside of a few moments. That is mostly the case in Rebirth, but this time the game lets you know whether you are influencing a character or not. The side quests themselves always have one party member who follows alongside you with big shiny anime eyes talking about how much they'll love you if you don't suck at the quest, and that includes Barrett. You'll also be able to romance members by using synergy moves with them or with dialogue choices, but those can actually be rude sometimes. I know a few times with Barrett especially, he'd be like, oh man, I miss Marlene, and there'd be an option to be like, it's okay, and I'd pick it thinking that it'd comfort him, only for Cloud to continue it with, it's okay, that I'm not interested. I will say though, the beginning of the game is kind of a slog. There are a plethora of tutorials at every end, and despite being a PS5 title, it doesn't really feel like it. The game still feels the need to lock you behind walk and talk sequences or squeeze through narrow passageway sections, which are generally a dev's way of masking loading screens. And if they aren't really necessary on the PS5, then what exactly is the point other than to take control away from the player? Some segments of the games have puzzles, but the budget clearly went into the minigame design, and the puzzles, well, they got backseated hard, because most just kind of barely function, and almost all of them are doing action very slowly multiple times. In one section of the game, you play as the Gal group equipped with the grappling hooks, and they are just aim at a location and then press a button to get tweened to a part. And it wasn't satisfying, like at all. It was just tedious. The overworld itself can kind of be a chore too, because having played games like Elden Ring and Tears of the Kingdom, it can be a gigantic pain to see a spot you could easily just drop down to be inaccessible unless you find an interactive object or a path. Generally, these are locked behind the absolutely horrifying yellow paint. I'm not even going to pretend to be upset about the yellow paint breaking my immersion in the game with Scooby-Doo summoning elder gods. I will complain that the gameplay design of them, though, is dumb. All you do is hold R2 in a direction to slowly and inconsistently move along a wall. This is especially painful, having played Tears of the Kingdom. I will say though, it's kind of funny that they have the yellow paint sections, but there's also a few spots that have their mechanics without the paint. It seems like it could have been an accessibility toggle, but ultimately it's better to have forced accessibility than no accessibility. And if it really bothers you, you can always bleach your eyes, because that'll make it so you don't see the yellow, among other things. I've played a ton of this title and I absolutely love it. I know it kind of tripped my stream viewers up. By the way, check out my Twitch. I got a cool AI companion now and you can really talk to him. It's cool. Because I wasn't streaming a Nintendo game, but I actually played more of this than I did for Tears of the Kingdom. It's a shame that Square Enix likes snagging that exclusivity money, because that is without a doubt going to murder the hype and longevity for this game. Reviewers seem to love it, but I still don't know many people with a PS5, and I don't suggest getting one. By the time it comes to PC, they'll probably do another exclusivity deal with Epic to further butcher it. I think it's funny too, because they'll complain about the sales numbers not meeting expectations, and it's like, what did you think? Who do you know that has a PS5? It happened to Final Fantasy 16 too. The exclusivity just hurts titles like this. If this was a day one PC launch, I could have seen it being huge. But since so many people have already watched others play it because it was inaccessible to them, they're just not going to bother picking it up themselves when it releases on another platform. Also factoring in that they might not even be able to experience the final part until 2028, supposedly. Having a remake fed to you over the course of 8 years is not a choice that I'm a fan of at all. I do like Final Fantasy VII, and I like Remake and Rebirth, but man, I'm going to be so old when the next part drops. So despite loving this title, I can't recommend it to anyone, since not only do you need a PS5, but you'll be forced to face your own mortality too.